So here's a hot take for you. Super Mario Bros. 2 is the better sequel to Super Mario Bros. Than the game that originally bore the title. Originally a prototype for a Mario-like game engine featuring vertical scrolling, before a deal with Fuji Television turned the game into a licensed property, Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic aka Dream Factory Heart Pounding Panic was given yet another facelift to become the American sequel to Super Mario Bros. When Nintendo of America deemed the original Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Family Computer Disk System to be too difficult for the locals, as it were. Because of the game's origins, and also because of its differing gameplay stylings, Super Mario Bros. 2 gained something of a dubious reputation over the years. But even with all that said, Super Mario Bros. 2 USA is a fine game in its own right, and perhaps most of all, did more to shape the Super Mario lore and expand on the gameplay than the other game did, which was simply Super Mario 1 with harder levels. A good number of characters that are staples in today's Mario universe. Shy Guys, Ninjas, Bob-ombs, Pokies, even Luigi's metamorphosis from Mario in green clothing to taller, slender, I like to kick while jumping Luigi that he is today, that all began in Super Mario USA. But I digress. Super Mario Bros. 2 is fairly simple fare. You pick from one of 4 playable characters. Mario, the balanced player of the bunch, Luigi with his odd-looking high jumps, Toad with his speed and strength curtailed by weak jumping, and Princess who is lacking in the strength department but can float in the air for a short bit, which is useful for crossing particularly large pits and skipping huge chunks of level. You could switch between characters in between stages, or you could stick with the one character throughout the game. In any event, awaiting you are 7 worlds of various types spanning 20 levels, including the standard plains, desert dunes, ice lands, and eventually Wart's Sky Kingdom. Yes, instead of the King of the Koopas, you have a frog king named Wart as your main villain. It's something different at least. Each level has a similar goal: make your way to the end, usually guarded by a birdo who must be disposed of in order to gain the crystal ball that opens up this bird-faced thing, locking away the exit to the level, or a larger end-world boss such as a Mouser or a Clawgrip who requires a bit more oomph to conquer. Your main means of attack has shifted from the previous outing. No longer are you stomping on Goombas, now you're picking stuff up from the ground and tossing them at whatever moves. Whether it be plucking vegetables from the ground, mushroom blocks that are just lying around, or even plucking foes to chuck them at other foes. The entire game is based around your ability to pick things up or stand on them, making for some interesting challenge that lay before you. And you will be making quite a bit of use of this ability, since it's the core of Super Mario Bros. 2. Super Mario 2 doesn't have the traditional power-ups, super mushrooms, fire flowers, things of that nature. Instead, you have potions that will open the door to subspace, where you could grab coins from the ground, and these coins are used in the bonus game at the end of each stage. Enter subspace at certain spots and you'll find a mushroom that you can pick up to add an extra hit point to your health meter, which you can extend up to 4. Each stage starts you off with 2 hit points. It resets every time you start a stage, and if you're down to 1, you shrink, and if you're down to none, you lose a life. Lose all your lives and it's game over, but you do have 2 continues to try again, I suppose. Kill a number of enemies and a heart will emerge from below, which will restore 1 hit point upon collecting it. Collect a number of cherries and an invincibility star will emerge from below, performing the same function it usually does in the previous and other games. Sometimes you can enter jars where secrets are contained. Sometimes you'll need bombs to blow up barricades, blocking the way. Other times you'll need to claim a key to unlock a door, all the while avoiding the Phantos that chase those who steal its prize. Even with fewer levels compared to the original's 32 or even the Lost Levels 52, Super Mario Bros. 2 does feel like a grander game. Not only are you venturing on horizontal scrolling levels going both right or left, but also vertical scrolling ones up and down, albeit screen by screen in this case. No longer are you restricted to the one path, each level has multiple segments, even multiple paths to reach the end of the level in some cases. There's no real set format beyond there's some boss at the end, kill it and go to the exit to play some slot machine for extra lives. No truly dedicated over or underworld levels, since you cover all the groundwork within a single level, and you're unhindered by a time limit, so you can explore as much of the level for as long as you like. And the levels, while basic, have their share of variety. Digging through the sand, which spotlights Toad's strength quite nicely. Riding an albatross across a particularly long canyon, which doesn't make for the most exciting level, but hey, it's something. hopping logs on waterfalls, riding a birdo egg to this part of the level and then just have Princess float over to this other bit and basically skip the whole level, thus proving that every once in a while Princess Peach can be somewhat useful and not just be fodder to be kidnapped just to have some Mario game plotline. Or something, I don't know. Control in Super Mario USA is almost on par with the previous game for the most part. Per usual, you move with the D-pad, A button jumps, the B button picks up stuff and tosses it, and holding it down while moving allows you to run. Now here's a fun fact, there was no run function in the original Doki Doki game. This was something they added for this version of the game, which was a bit of a revelation, I think. Yeah, you could run now, and also if you crouch for a little while, you'll flash and be able to perform a much higher jump, which is nice, albeit somewhat limited in its use, since the minute you move an inch, you lose this ability. They work about as well as you'd expect. Well, okay, to be fair, it's not quite perfect. The climbing, for example, is a bit suspect, as you could climb up and down perfectly fine, but you could also slide left and right, which causes you to inadvertently, at times, fall off the vine and fall down, which, well, it's rather unfortunate, but other than that, perfectly fine. For the most part, the graphics are somewhat decent. No doubt a step above the original Super Mario Bros. As characters, enemies, and level design seem somewhat more detailed in comparison. It's not exactly high art, however, as there's very little to nothing in terms of backgrounds in the game. The sprites have a rather obnoxious blue outline during indoor or underground segments, but that's to be expected somewhat with the hardware. Some of the bigger enemies are well drawn, with some funny pain animations that play when you hit them. On a whole, in terms of the presentation, visually, it looks fine. The soundtrack, pretty much the same as the Doki Doki game, save for a couple additional traditional Mario themes, is also pretty catchy, which I would expect from the Koji Kodo-san. Again, it's a rather small pool of songs, and the boss theme admittedly tends to be a bit irritable after a while due to its short loop, but the rest is serviceable fare that is serviceable, I guess. As are the sound effects, which are Mario-esque in some regards and just straight up Mario in others. Yeah, that's all I got. Well, some people will prefer one over the other. One will take the lost levels due to sticking with what worked before and just make everything harder, and the other took another game and redressed it slightly with some fixes here and there. And given the choice, Super Mario Bros. 2 USA is the better game because, despite deviating from what came before somewhat, it did expand on the experience with somewhat larger levels, more variety in terrain, new cast of characters, new players to play with. Honestly, I soured on this game in my younger years because it was a different game from 1 and 3. But that came and went. And ultimately, Super Mario Bros. 2 holds up tremendously well after all these years, and is just as worthy a follow-up to the game that started it all.